Our opening thought comes from the Dirty Truth of AI, published by the NAACP. Artificial intelligence and cloud computing have revolutionized how we live and work. But the dirty truth is that the warehouses full of computers that power AI threaten the progress we've made to protect people from pollutants. These data centers and the plants that power them typically burn fuels that emit hazardous chemicals that cause cancer and other health issues into the air that the local community breathes. Our next reading comes from a 2026 report from United Nations University titled Environmental Cost of Artificial Intelligence, Carbon, Water, and Land Footprints. The rapid rise of AI presents a growing sustainability challenge. Large-scale AI models demand substantial energy for both training and inference, and their appetite is growing faster than the world can decarbonize. Fossil fuels continue to dominate global electricity supply, while low-carbon sources have not yet scaled enough to replace them. The additional electricity required by AI makes the transition to renewables and sustainability more challenging by further increasing energy demand and amplifying the environmental impacts of power generation. Our next reading comes from Jacob Carter. The AI data center boom is an environmental justice crisis. Carter writes, the rapid expansion of data centers to power artificial intelligence is often described as a story of modern technology, innovation, and economic development. But for many environmental justice communities, it is a story about issues more familiar: a fight over land, water, energy, pollution, public money, and who gets a meaningful say before decisions are made. That's why the National Wildlife Federation's Environmental Justice, Health, and Community Resilience and Revitalization Program hosted a three-part Clean Economy Coalition of Color roundtable series on data centers. The series began with local perspectives and community impacts, where organizers and community leaders described what it means when data centers are proposed, approved, or built in underserved communities. Our second roundtable focused on policy and public health insights, examining the health risks, regulatory gaps, and governance questions raised by large-scale data center development. And a final roundtable turned to climate impacts and energy use, looking at how data centers are reshaping energy demand, utility planning, fossil fuel infrastructure, and household affordability. I knew going into the series that data centers were becoming an environmental justice issue. I was still floored by what we heard. Across all three conversations, the lesson was clear. We cannot separate the artificial intelligence data center boom from environmental justice. The data center boom is an environmental justice crisis. So among the many ethical concerns related to artificial intelligence is the detrimental environmental impact owing to the water and energy use of the new AI data centers that our readings discussed this morning, that the song discussed this morning. And of course, much of this environmental impact will be felt most acutely by the most vulnerable among us. If you want to hear me talk a little bit in more detail about this topic and have some discussion about it, everyone's invited to join me and a few hundred other folks on a webinar this coming Tuesday, July 28th at 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time. I'll be leading a webinar on the environmental implications of artificial intelligence. This is a conversation-centered online webinar created to explore the ethical, theological, and practical questions emerging around artificial intelligence. The webinar is focused on United Methodist, but I think anyone who attended would enjoy it. And I'll be focusing on the topic AI, creation care, and Christian responsibility. I'll make sure to get the link to that to you all before Tuesday if you'd like to register. The climate scientists warned us about more intense heat waves. They warned us about rising sea levels, worse droughts, more extreme flood events, stronger storms, more uncontrollable fires, crop losses, more diseases, acidification of the oceans, death of the coral reefs, accelerated extinction of species, crop loss, and more. But we let the oligarchs who are profiting off the demise of a livable climate call the political shots. And we need to collectively wake up before this nightmare becomes permanent, if it may already be. At precisely the time that the United States should be acting as a global leader in addressing our climate crisis, our emissions, for the first time in a decade, are actually increasing, owing to an increased energy use by artificial intelligence and an energy policy that overwhelmingly favors oil, natural gas, and coal. According to a new report from the Energy Institute, the United States was responsible in 2025 for 50% of the world's CO2 emissions growth. 50%. The lives of billions of persons are in the balance. Unless resisted successfully by a scientifically informed, pluralistic, and participatory democracy, the combination of oligarchic greed and anti-intellectual, racist, and patriarchal religious nationalism will lead large swaths of humanity into a new dark age in which there may be a plethora of information, but very little wisdom, justice, or concern for the truth. The tech oligarchs are creating a world with enhanced artificial intelligence, but with significantly diminished human intelligence, a combination that gives them more power over us and more concentrated wealth for themselves. What is left of humanity in future generations will not understand how we let the greed of the few destroy the flourishing of the many. Most of us have probably not thought through all of the implications of the unregulated use of AI. Up until the last few weeks, I had not been thinking through them very much myself, but when you have to prepare for a webinar, it gets you to studying and researching. And I don't think after doing that, that it is, if you listen to the persons who are most responsible for the development of AI, the persons who are researching AI, I don't think it's inappropriate to be terrified of the potential consequences of unregulated AI in the very near future. Just this week, there were reports of an open AI system going rogue and hacking into other systems. And AI executives, just this past week, it went rogue and it started hacking into other systems. AI executives, developers, and researchers are openly discussing the percentage chance that AI will bring about disastrous consequences for humanity, such as existential catastrophe or extinction. And for a significant portion of them, the percentage chance is much higher than zero. I want it to be zero. They call this the P-doom, which stands for probability of doom. Probability of doom caused by AI. AI is also creating a crisis in education, as more and more students and sadly more and more educators are relying heavily on AI to do their research and writing for them. This is contributing to a crisis that is diminishing both critical thinking and creativity and the ability to read thoughtfully and write well. And it has caused me, as many of you know, to go back to the blue books in my exams in my classes, which has been one of the best things I've done over the past 2 years, because a significant percentage, a majority of students were using generative AI to simply take the prompts of essays, put it in generative AI, and have AI write their papers for them. But this morning, I'd like for us to especially consider the environmental impact of artificial intelligence and how this impact is being felt disproportionately by the most vulnerable persons and communities within our society and our world. The high electricity demands of AI data centers are exacerbating our climate crisis. And for the first time in a decade in the United States, we are seeing an increase in the use of coal for electricity generation owing to AI data centers. The data centers also require large amounts of water to keep them cool, and many of these centers are being built in areas that are already facing water stress and shortages. In addition to higher water bills and higher electric bills for those who live close to the data centers, they are also experiencing more air pollution and significant noise pollution as well. Understandably, no one wants an AI data center in their backyard. Not in my backyard. But this simply means that those with wealth and political power are able to keep the AI data centers at a distance, while persons living in poverty, and especially persons of color, increasingly find data centers in their communities, and they are disproportionately experiencing their most detrimental environmental effects. We have seen the NIMBY phenomenon over and over again when it comes to the negative environmental impacts of industrial activity, and it contributes directly to environmental injustice and to environmental racism. And of course, the climate crisis that AI data centers are exacerbating also has a disproportionate impact on those persons and those parts of the world that are the least responsible for causing the crisis. The aforementioned social, economic, and environmental concerns are why so many are calling for a moratorium on new data centers until we have a better understanding of their impacts. At the very least, we need robust regulations on AI to make sure that it is being used for purposes that are helpful rather than pernicious for humanity. There is a perspective within the Methodist tradition of Christianity. This is a little preview of what I'll be doing on Tuesday in the webinar, but there's a perspective within the Methodist tradition of Christianity that I do find to be helpful when addressing ethical concerns. It comes from the founder of the Methodist movement, John Wesley, who put forward 3 simple rules. I like simple rules. I like things to be simple. And these 3 simple rules are these. 1, do no harm. 2, do good. It's a little bit of difference. They're connected. And then the third, which not all of us might connect with in the same way, he said, stay in love with God. Now, express that perhaps as this. Stay in love with all things in the universe. Stay in love with all that is. Stay in love with all that's on the earth, right? So express love for all things in the universe, or at least on the earth. If you look at AI in relation to those 3 simple rules, AI is clearly doing harm, socially, economically, and environmentally. Is AI capable of doing good? Yes. But is the good that is being done worth the existential threat and the P-doom, the probability of doom that its unregulated use is creating? I fear not. Doesn't mean that a regulated form of it might not be able to do enough good that it outweighs the harm. But right now, in the unregulated format that we're seeing, I fear not. Does AI enhance our love for one another and for the earth as a whole? I'm not seeing it. Perhaps it is possible, once again, in some highly regulated form. But right now, it's clear to me that unregulated AI does not follow Wesley's 3 simple rules. It's doing more harm than good, and it's not connecting us with each other in beloved community. And I think it would serve humanity well to regulate its use and substantially reduce the probability of doom that so many AI researchers believe that the unregulated use of AI implies. If we want to do no harm, if we want to do positive good in the world, and if we want to stay in love with each other, with all of humanity, with all of nature, then we must heed this warning. Beware of any technology that substantially increases the probability of doom. Can I get an amen? Amen. Okay. Hear this benediction from Scott Cooper. This is our calling. The world aches for us to join together and bring about healing, toil for justice, and produce ever-increasing love. This is our calling. Go forth and act accordingly.